Tonight, rates on hold while a council rejects a plan to up its fees. And Pauline Hanson's push for cashless welfare could Port Augusta be on the list.
This is Southern Cross News with Tim Hatfield.
Good evening, but first tonight, 2 men have faced court and a woman reportedly needed treatment after a violent home invasion at Solomon Town in Port Pirie this morning. Neighbours reportedly hearing a major disturbance amid reports an axe or even a gun was involved. Rachel Nell has the details.
2 men have been charged with a number of offences after police were called to this street in Solomon Town around 7:30 this morning after reports a break-in was underway. On arrival, police say they could hear a significant disturbance inside the address and were following on from initial reports suggesting a firearm may be involved. They blocked off the area before a vehicle was seen leaving the address. Officers shortly afterwards stopped a car and 2 men, a 44-year-old and a 26-year-old, both from Port Pirie, were arrested at the scene. A homemade firearm was then located by police inside the car. They have both been charged with serious criminal trespass, theft, aggravated assault, threatening life and unlawful detention. It's believed a young woman received facial injuries during the incident and she was treated at the scene. Both men were initially refused bail and faced the Port Pirie Magistrates Court this afternoon. Detectives here in Port Pirie spent the afternoon investigating the incident, with reports a gun and 1 weapon, an axe, recovered from the scene.
Rachel Nell reporting there. Council rates in Whyalla will remain the same as last year after Council voted for a rate rise freeze last night. However, there are concerns on the effect the decision will have on future budgets, with one councillor raising his concerns during the debate.
After deliberation and discussion, Whyalla Council last night voted 8 against 1 to reject a 1.9% increase in rates. It was argued the lingering uncertainty over Arium made it unfair for residents to shoulder a rate increase. Management now need to find around $200,000 in savings, something the CEO is confident can be done.
We operate a budget of around $30 million. So $200,000 over $30 million spend is not that large.
One councillor, however, has questioned the timing of a rate freeze. David Knox says the freeze will impact the long-term financial plan, which called for rises of around 2%, warning higher rates and cuts to services may be needed in the future.
And we will find that we'll either have to start looking at services or have increases that are substantially greater than the rate of inflation.
And while Mr Cowley says rate rises will be needed in future, he's confident the savings made will keep those to a minimum.
And those savings will be compounded, so they should in some way offset the lack of a rate rise this year.
Councillors changed their mind on the increase after a public backlash on social media. Mr Cowley says he doesn't see the change as a setback, saying it's proof elected members are listening to the community.
They've taken that on board and taken what they believe is the appropriate action, which in this case was a 0% rate rise.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Port Augusta is again discussing the cashless welfare card after Sejuna's mayor presented positive experiences with the card at last night's council meeting. In a visit to Port Augusta yesterday, controversial Senator Pauline Hanson said she supports the card, rubbishing claims it's a matter of race.
Pauline Hanson has no time for those who oppose the cashless welfare card. What's your response to them?
Well, a load of rubbish. I wish they'd sit down and speak to these people that have seen the results of it, and they're praising it to the hilts.
The card is again being discussed for those on welfare payments in Port Augusta as Sejuna's mayor presented his side of the story in council last night, with Senator Hanson's full support.
This is what I'm saying. Give it a trial, let the people have a go, and then see the results, and then make your final decision based on that.
Sam Johnson says his Far West counterpart presented a positive case.
There's no agenda there. He just virtually says what it is, went through the goods, the bads, and he said, it's not the be-all and end-all. It has made some significant positive improvements in the Sejuna community in many elements.
There's people who say because they're not happy with it because of someone of a different culture, different colour of their skin, whatever, so let's raise the tag racist. But that's not the answer to everything, by just crying out racist. apparently works. I'm fully supportive of it and it should be introduced.
While it's not the Northern Territory's basics card, there are concerns the scheme could further isolate those on welfare. Mayor Johnson says Port Augusta isn't one of Australia's 30 towns to approach the government about the card, yet the council will first need to ask more questions.
Because you don't want to roll something out like this which can create a bit of pain for some and a bit of a hindrance when there's no real direct benefit. You've got to be able to see a direct benefit to be able to go down this path.
Amelia Simpson, Southern Cross News.
Share houses that provide temporary accommodation for homeless people in Port Lincoln are being purchased by overseas buyers. West Coast Youth has partnered with a foreign investor to guarantee housing for the homeless into the future.
It's a new initiative to help those most vulnerable off our streets. West Coast Youth, with the support of international investment, has purchased a share house in Port Lincoln in a bid to offer permanent residence to help get the homeless back on their feet.
West Coast Youth and Community Support owns some properties that we were gifted a few years ago, and we now have formed a partnership with an investor from overseas.
Originally from Adelaide, Nathan now resides in Dubai, but his ties to the West Coast remain close to his heart. His investment in Port Lincoln property honouring a desperate cause.
People are, sleeping under jetties, in cars, and everyone has the right to feel safe and go home to a warm environment, somewhere safe they have their belongings and, try to build and get back on their feet for a better future.
The community service fully behind the initiative, a first of its kind.
It's a really good option for housing. It just needs to be done really well and ensure that we're providing really strong support.
West Coast Youth currently offer 10 beds, 6 of which are occupied, providing a significant turnaround in people's lives.
We've seen amazing success so far. I've had a couple of people that have moved out into private rental. We've had people become employed, people being able to continue on with their studies because they have somewhere to study.
Although this is just the first step, Nathan is already thinking about the future of the project.
A good discussion yesterday to look at increasing this across Port Lincoln and other areas, so hopefully, bigger things to come.
For more information about temporary housing in Port Lincoln, visit our Facebook page. Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
Well, stay with us. Still to come in tonight's local news, the revised visitor guide for the Mid-North, including a throwback to the region's rail heritage. The details ahead. Welcome back. Regional Development Minister Jeff Brock says the state government has committed $105 million to its Regional Development Fund. While the amount seems like a once-off allocation, this year's budget commitment is expanding on $90 million already committed in previous years. This budget, the government is continuing its $15 million a year contribution by another year into 2021. The allocation in the state budget will span the next 4 years, which it hopes will support regional projects and create local jobs. Well, last night's launch of the Port Pirie and Southern Flinders Ranges Visitor Guide saw a special surprise to boost tourism in the region. Among the many activities and adventures is the Heritage Rail Trail, a 365-kilometre trek from Port Pirie to Broken Hill.
The 9th edition of the guide features updated information on attractions and services in the region, along with maps, day trips and itineraries.
It's an 84-page publication produced by the Port Pirie Regional Council, and it promotes the Port Pirie region but also the Southern Flinders as well.
This guide is a one-stop shop for tourists in the region.
Particularly focusing on the tourist attractions, because that's what we're trying to do, is build up the numbers of people who come to the region and giving them more reason to stay in the region.
And one of the main highlights within the guide is the Heritage Rail Trail Self-Drive, which follows the remains of the Broken Hill to Port Pirie railway line.
Which celebrates an old narrow gauge railway line that runs directly within touching distance almost of the highway from Broken Hill to here. And that railway line was once the busiest railway line in the world.
The trail will have a digital guide and travellers can use their phones to discover the story.
A lot of Australians don't really know that story, and we've brought it to life in what we think is a 4 to 6 to 8 night itinerary.
The Broken Hill to Port Pirie Heritage Rail Trail recently won the Destination Marketing category at the South Australian Tourism Awards, and the promotional video can now be viewed at the Broken Hill, Peterborough and Port Pirie Visitor Information Centres. Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
The Alesco Learning Centre in Broken Hill will close its doors next month after failing to meet requirements of the New South Wales Education Standards Authority. The school has provided help and assistance to students who found it difficult to prosper in mainstream education. Patrick Reinke has the details.
The future of students here at the Alesco Learning Centre is now uncertain after it was announced by the Robinson Education Centre Board that it will close next month. After a long and sustained effort by staff and the board, they couldn't satisfy all the requirements of the state's Education Standards Authority. The centre opened in 2013, offering a supportive environment for young people who struggle at mainstream schools but still wanted to achieve an educational qualification. In a statement today, Chair of the Centre Board, Marion Brown, said her thanks go to the staff who worked with the students over the last 4 years, and that her wishes go with the current students who will now enrol in new schools. Ms Brown said the difficulty of attracting a sufficient number of teachers to independent schools like Alesco has been a factor. The state's Education Standards Authority also released a statement saying the failure to meet requirements is related to the provision of a safe environment, the capacity of the centre's teaching staff and school's curriculum. They say the school has until July 7th to request an internal review into the recommendation to close. Alesco students will now transition across to the city's public schools. The centre will close on July 28.
Patrick Reinke reporting there. Whyalla police need the public's help to locate a knife that was used in the murder of a man at Whyalla Stewart in April. They say despite extensive searches of the area, they're yet to locate the weapon, which could be in someone's backyard. Here's John with this week's Police Talk.
Early on Sunday, April 23rd, a 35-year-old man was murdered at his home on McNamara Street. A 23-year-old man was arrested later that day and charged with the killing. However, the weapon has yet to be found.
A sharp-edged weapon, most likely a knife, was used to stab the victim, and despite a search of several properties and surrounding streets, the weapon wasn't located.
Police and the SES have conducted numerous searches around the streets bordered by Bastine Crescent, McCritchie Crescent and Nicholson Avenue. Police believe it could be anywhere, from a garden bed to on top of a roof or down the back of an alley.
We don't always find weapons in all cases. This is obviously an example of one where it's harder to find it. We don't want people to take risks to try and find it.
They now want residents in the area to keep an eye out for a knife when they're in their gardens. And if residents find a knife or a sharp object, Inspector Hubbard says they should leave it where it is and immediately call police.
If anyone locates a sharp-edged weapon in the area, to please leave it where it is and call police on 131 444.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Well, stay with us. When we return after the break, Broken Hills High School set to come together for a special musical performance. The details ahead. Welcome back. Music students from both Broken Hill High Schools have held their final rehearsals before a big performance tomorrow night. It's the first time Iliamna and Broken Hill Highs will perform together on the same night, and the students and teachers are getting into fine tune.
Practice makes perfect.
Well, this is the first time ever that the two high schools are performing at a concert together.
Every year, senior students at both high schools do major concerts, but tomorrow's fusion of both schools at the one venue is the first of its kind. The idea for a joint concert came when the Broken Hill Civic Centre's closure threatened the school's performances.
They sort of cancelled the concert and we thought, no, we're not having this and we're going to put one on together.
There will be a wide variety of genres on display, from talented electric guitar to gentle piano to fast-paced drums.
There's a whole range of stuff. We've got pop music through to psychedelic post-rock.
So the pieces that they're playing for the concert tomorrow, they started playing at the beginning of the term. And, you know, we spent every week just trying to sharpen them up, get them to a higher standard so we can put on the best concert we can.
While some students say they are a bit nervous, one lead singer can't wait for the big night.
I love performing. I'm sure I can say the same for my other peers, but I'm sure there would probably be some nerves on the night. It's going to be great. I honestly cannot wait because it's going to be a new experience for like all of us.
The concert will be held at Broken Hill High School tomorrow night, with doors opening at 6 for a 6:30 start. Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Planning for the Port Pirie Christmas pageant is in full swing, with this year's date set for December the 2nd, and you can enter your floats as early as now. But the Port Pirie Christmas pageant team is seeking help from 2 new elves to make sure the day is filled with Christmas spirit, people with a knack for digital communication, project work, public relations, and those who have an artistic flair are encouraged to join the team to help make the day a success. They're also welcoming anyone with a great enthusiasm who loves working with energetic people. If you have a Christmas elf inside of you, apply now. The details are on our Facebook page. We're turning to sports news now, and a massive weekend for netballers in Port Lincoln and Port Pirie. Jason Kim joins us. Jason, some undefeated teams continuing their good form.
Tim, the season is well underway and Waybacks continue their undefeated form, defeating South by 19 points. Meanwhile, Boston cement themselves in the top 4 with a win over the Imperials. Meantime, Winilla were far too strong for St Mary's, defeating them by 60 goals. Turning to Port Pirie, Solis overcame Celtics by 7 points, while in the closest game of the round, Centrals defeated Blue Wren by 1 goal in the dying seconds. In Port Augusta, the Railways remain in hot form, defeating the Magpies by 39 points, while St Joseph's edged out the Vikings in a tight game. In Whyalla, True Blue accounted for the Roos easily, while in another nail-biter, Kiwi defeated the Warriors by 2 points in a tight finish. And finally, in the northern areas, there were wins for Broughton, Jamestown and Orroroo. Turning to soccer now, and the Lincoln Knights had a defiant win over the Raiders 3-1, while the South Coast edged out the Masters 2-0. In the NPL State League, the Northern Demons went down to Mount Barker 2-1, while in the Amateur League, Savoy drew with Manopara. In Whyalla, Croatia crushed Westlands United 6-0, while Still United defeated the Wanderers by a goal. Over to Broken Hill, Celtic defeated St Joe's 4-2, and Alma drew with West 0-0. Team, that's all the sport we've got for another week, but we'll be back on Friday with our expert footy tippers from around the region. And if you've got some local sport results that you want to see on TV, make sure you drop us a line at localsport@sea.com.au.
Good stuff, thank you, Jace. We'll stay with us after the break. A look at the local weather for the rest of the week. Welcome back. Turning to the weather now, a few passing showers and 16 today in Port Augusta with 18 down in Port Lincoln. Whyalla fine and 16, the same in Port Pirie, showers and 14 on and off over in Broken Hill. On the national satellite image, patchy cloud continues to move across the region with it a few showers here and there as well. Out on the Gulf waters, the winds to 15 knots and northerly, the seas to 1.5 metres and to the south. Sunrise at 7:25. So looking at tomorrow, a fine 18 on the way for Port Augusta with 16 for Whyalla and for Port Pirie as well, showers and 17 in Port Lincoln. Broken Hill also possible showers and a top of 14. Then looking into Thursday, showers and 17 for Port Lincoln, then fine and 18 for Friday. Cleve 16 right through, Woodness 17 degrees all week. Whyalla with a fine 16 for Thursday, 15 degrees for Friday, 16 both days in Port Augusta. Kadina with showers and 15, then sunny later in the week. Port Pirie sunny all week, 16 degrees right through. Clare sunny and 13. Broken Hill fine with 14 degrees to run out this week. And that is the local news for this evening. Don't forget, as always, you can stay up to date with us on Facebook and on Twitter. You can also get in touch with us via email. We'll see you back here tomorrow night from 6:30. I'm Tim Hatfield from the team here at Southern Cross News. Have a good evening. Good night.